She fought it for weeks. She dodged the subpoena. She used every legal argument her team could find. And then in a single afternoon, Pam Bondi surrendered. The woman who sat at the top of the Justice Department, the woman who controlled every Epstein file in the building, the woman Donald Trump personally chose to protect the most explosive secrets in Washington. She just agreed to testify under oath. And right now, somewhere in Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump is watching this unfold, and he is panicking. Because here's the thing nobody is saying out loud. Bondi didn't just agree to talk. She agreed to talk about Epstein, about the files, about what was withheld, what was hidden, and what was released only after Congress forced her hand. She was inside the room when every single decision was made. She signed off on what the American people got to see, and more importantly, what they didn't. And now she's going to sit in a chair, raise her right hand, and answer for all of it. So what broke her? What finally made the former Attorney General of the United States cave after weeks of defiance? One word: contempt. And the moment that word hit the air, everything changed. Let's go back to the beginning, because this story didn't start last week. It started more than a year ago when Pam Bondi walked into the Justice Department with a promise. She was going to release everything, every file, every document, every piece of evidence tied to Jeffrey Epstein that the DOJ had been sitting on for years. She said it on Fox News. She smiled and said an Epstein client list was sitting on her desk right now, ready to review. The MAGA base erupted. Finally, someone was going to do it. Finally, the truth was coming out. It was a lie. The list didn't exist. Or at least that's what the DOJ said weeks later when reporters started asking questions. They walked it back. They said Bondi was referring to general paperwork, flight logs, documents already in the public domain. The specific client list she described, the one that would have named names, apparently never materialized. The base felt betrayed. Trump's allies were furious. And the man in the White House started watching Bondi's hourglass very carefully. But that wasn't the worst of it. Congress passed a law, an actual law signed by Trump himself after he fought it for months, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. It mandated that the DOJ release everything by a hard deadline. And what happened? They released millions of documents, yes, but they withheld millions more. 2.5 million files, still buried, still redacted, still locked behind the same walls Bondi had promised to tear down. And the people protecting the most powerful men in Epstein's orbit breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Bipartisan fury exploded on Capitol Hill. Not just Democrats, Republicans too. Thomas Massie, Nancy Mace, lawmakers who had fought for years to force this release watched Bondi's Justice Department quietly bury the most important documents anyway. The House Oversight Committee issued a subpoena in March 2026, bipartisan, supported by all Democrats and 5 Republicans. Bondi would testify under oath about what happened. She was scheduled for April 14th. Then Trump fired her, April 2nd, 12 days before she was supposed to sit in that chair. The timing was not a coincidence. Trump had been fuming for months, not just about the Epstein files, about all of it, about indictments that got thrown out, about opponents who walked free, about a Justice Department that he felt had failed him on every front that mattered. Sources described the conversation between Trump and Bondi as tough. He made clear she was done. And just like that, the woman with all the answers was out of a job. Here's where it gets interesting. The moment she was fired, the DOJ sent a letter to the House Oversight Committee. The letter said Bondi no longer needed to testify. She had been subpoenaed in her official capacity as Attorney General. She wasn't the Attorney General anymore. Therefore, the subpoena was void. Case closed. Move along. Democrats did not move along. They called it exactly what it was: a dodge, a cover-up, a deliberate attempt to make the most important witness in the most important investigation disappear the moment things got too dangerous. Ranking Member Robert Garcia stood in front of cameras and said it plainly. She was subpoenaed as Pam Bondi, not as a title. She has personal knowledge. She was in every meeting. She made every decision. The subpoena doesn't evaporate because Trump showed her the door. Weeks passed. The committee waited. Republican Chair James Comer said nothing. Democrats grew louder. And then on April 29th, something snapped. Democrats filed a formal contempt resolution, civil contempt of Congress. They announced it publicly at the Capitol with cameras rolling. Rep. Garcia walked to the microphone and said 4 words that changed everything that day. We filed contempt charges. That was 9 in the morning. By 9:45, the Republican committee spokesperson posted on X, former Attorney General Pam Bondi is appearing on May 29th. 45 minutes. That's how long it took the defiance to collapse. That's how long the entire wall held once the contempt threat became real. 45 minutes from charges to surrender. And the Democrats didn't even blink. They posted immediately. 45 minutes after we file contempt charges, they finally announce a date. When Democrats fight, we win. But let's be honest about what just happened here, because this wasn't just a scheduling dispute. This was a test of whether a former attorney general who was fired by the president could simply refuse to cooperate with Congress and walk away clean. And the answer turned out to be no. The subpoena held, the legal argument that her firing voided her obligation didn't survive contact with reality. She is going to testify. May 29th, closed-door deposition, House Oversight Committee, and the entire Washington establishment is holding its breath. Why? Because of what she knows. Think about the timeline for a moment. Bondi was the nation's top law enforcement officer from early 2025 until April 2026. More than a year. During that entire time, the Epstein files controversy raged. The release happened under her watch. The withholding happened under her watch. The redactions protecting the most powerful names in that network happened under her watch. She didn't just observe this process, she ran it. Every decision about what to release, what to bury, what to redact, what to hand over, and what to keep, those decisions flowed through her department. And then there's the Fox News moment, that claim about a client list on her desk. That statement alone is a thread that prosecutors or investigators could pull for hours. Where did that statement come from? Why did she say it? What did she actually have in front of her when she said it? If there was no list, why describe something so specific? And if there was something that resembled a list, something with names, connections, financial records, what happened to it? Who told her to walk the statement back? These are the questions that will be sitting in that room on May 29th. Now let's talk about Trump, because this is where the panic becomes real. The former president has spent years building a wall around the Epstein story. He knew Epstein. He was photographed with him. He has called him a terrific guy in old interviews that still circulate online. His base, the same base that demands Epstein accountability louder than almost anyone, has been watching this closely. Every document withheld, every file redacted, every deadline missed. They notice, and they're angry. Bondi's surrender to testify isn't just a legal development. It's a political earthquake in the one community Trump cannot afford to lose. Because here's the calculation that's happening right now. If Bondi testifies and defends the DOJ's handling of the files, the base will see it as more cover-up. If she testifies and reveals something damaging about what was withheld and why, the fallout becomes uncontrollable. There is no good answer. There is no version of May 29th that makes this story go away. The deposition is closed door. The transcript will become public eventually. The investigators are watching. The DOJ's own Inspector General is now probing compliance with the Epstein Transparency Act. The Government Accountability Office is investigating too. The walls are not just closing. They are closing from every direction simultaneously. And Bondi is no longer protected. She has no title, no institutional backing. The DOJ that once sent a letter trying to save her from testifying is now under different leadership. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's own former personal defense attorney, is running the building now. Nobody is coming to rescue Pam Bondi. She is on her own, and she knows it. The surrender wasn't weakness, it was mathematics. Face contempt charges, end up in federal court, and have every moment of resistance documented in the public record, or show up May 29th and try to thread the needle under oath. She chose the needle. Legal analysts who have been watching this case say the deposition creates its own kind of danger. Every answer she gives gets locked in. Every document she was asked to review and claims she doesn't remember gets checked against the record. Every explanation for why certain files were withheld will be compared against the communications that exist inside that department. Just like we saw with other high-profile witnesses in Washington, the testimony doesn't just answer questions, it creates new ones. It establishes a baseline. And any contradiction, even a small one, even a technical one, becomes a problem she will have to live with indefinitely. Here's what the political world doesn't want to reckon with. Bondi was not a passive figure in this story. She wasn't a bystander who inherited a mess and tried her best. She made promises, specific, public, on-camera promises. She said the files were coming out. She described documents that apparently didn't exist. She presided over a release that the law mandated, missed deadlines, withheld millions of files, and then got fired by the man who hired her precisely because he felt betrayed. That is not the resume of someone who has nothing to answer for. The survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse are watching. Advocates who have spent years fighting for these files are watching. Congressional investigators who voted across party lines to compel this testimony are watching. And somewhere at the center of all of this, there are documents still locked inside a Justice Department building. Documents that contain names, connections, evidence of what happened on that island, on those flights, in those rooms. The question has never been whether those documents exist. The question has always been who has the power to keep them buried, and whether that power has limits. May 29th is not the end of this story. It might not even be the most important chapter, but it is the moment when the woman who controlled those files, who made those decisions, who stood at the podium and told the American people the truth was coming, sits down in a room and has to explain herself. Without a title, without institutional protection, without Donald Trump in her corner. Just her, the documents, and the questions that have been waiting since the day she walked into that building with a promise she didn't keep. Trump is panicking, not because Bondi will necessarily say something explosive. He's panicking because he can't control what happens in that room. He fired her. She has no reason to protect him. She has every reason to protect herself. And a witness with nothing left to lose, a witness with personal knowledge of every decision made, every file withheld, every deadline missed, is the most dangerous kind of witness there is. The deposition is coming. The questions are ready. And whatever Bondi says under oath on May 29th will echo through this story for years. Stay close, because this is only the beginning of what's about to come out.